Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. We are diving into something pretty huge today. Artificial intelligence,
Oh, yeah?
AI. Is it going to save us? Is it going to, be the end of us all?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and we asked you all for some material, some sources on this,
We
and
got some fascinating stuff.
oh my gosh, a ton of
A
stuff.
lot to unpack.
Yeah, and it is like I was saying, like both sides of the coin, right? Like
Yeah.
it's either like the golden ticket or it's like the end.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to see this really stark contrast in the perspectives,
Yeah.
from very, very credible sources. So we've got, very, very serious warnings from some leading experts about
Yeah.
AI, potentially causing, humanity's downfall,
Yeah.
the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah.
But then others are saying, no, 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 this is a huge exaggeration. We need to be focusing on the more immediate stuff.
Yeah.
The things that are actually happening right now and the good things that can come out of this technology.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to try to do today is to unpack this.
Exactly.
Look at these sources,
Yeah.
figure out like what are people really worried about?
Mm.
What should we actually be worried about? And what are the good things that can come out of this?
Absolutely. Let's break it down.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with the kind of the scary stuff first, right? The doom and gloom.
Oh yeah, the big one.
The Auslöschung der Menschheit.
Oh yeah, that's a mouthful.
It's a German word that basically means like the extinction of humanity.
The end.
The end. And it sounds very, science fiction-y.
Right.
But it is something that, serious people are talking about.
It is, and it is kind of striking to see how much traction that warning has gained.
Yeah.
One of the sources that you sent in cites a report from 2023, and it even mentions people like Sam Altman, who's, from OpenAI, deeply involved in developing this technology.
Right.
And even he has publicly stated this as a potential risk.
Wow.
It's not just, academics on the sidelines. It's the people who are actually in there
Yeah.
building these systems saying, whoa, this could be a problem.
Yeah, and it wasn't just him, right? There were multiple people in that source that were saying this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't a single voice.
And it wasn't just like some, random blog or something. It was like
Yeah.
researchers in the journal Science reiterated this concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal. Science is
Yeah, Science is a very well-respected publication.
Yeah, so they're taking it seriously.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about like the mechanisms of concern, right? Like how could this actually what are they?
How do we get to the end of the world?
Yeah, what are they worried about specifically?
Yeah, so the Science article gets into the specifics. And one of the major worries, and this is a scary thought, is autonomous AI systems taking control of weapon systems, and not just, conventional weapons, but biological weapons as well.
Oh, wow.
So the fear is that without human oversight, these systems could escalate conflicts or even initiate, catastrophic events on their own.
That is terrifying.
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah, so basically like a system is making decisions about life and death
Yes.
on a huge scale with no human intervention.
With no human intervention.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a very, very frightening scenario.
Yeah. What else did they point out?
Well, they also mentioned the possibility of large-scale cyber attacks
Okay.
orchestrated by AI.
Yeah.
Imagine a system that's capable of crippling infrastructure, causing widespread chaos,
Yeah.
shutting down power grids, communication systems, financial markets, all of that.
Yeah.
And beyond those sort of, immediate sort of destructive scenarios,
Yeah.
they talk about AI being used for societal manipulation,
Yeah.
sophisticated disinformation campaigns. That could undermine trust in institutions, in democracy itself.
Wow.
And then there's this more insidious threat of pervasive surveillance,
Okay.
using AI to monitor every aspect of our lives,
Yeah.
leading to a loss of privacy
Yeah.
and ultimately, a fundamental erosion of human autonomy.
So not as like immediately like, doomsday-ish as like, AI taking over all the weapons.
Right.
But still like a very, very bad outcome.
Yeah, it's a slow burn maybe,
Yeah.
but ultimately leading to a world where human agency is severely diminished.
Yeah. So okay, that's the really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But one of our sources points out that, there are some very credible voices pushing back on this level of alarm.
Yes.
Professor Christian Kirsting from TU Darmstadt calls the whole Auslöschung scenario absurd.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words.
No, he's like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
So what's his argument? Like, why does he think that that's not something we should be worried about?
Well, his main point is that by focusing on this very distant and frankly hard to imagine threat,
right,
we risk diverting our attention and resources from the more tangible, immediate challenges that AI presents.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying, let's deal with the problems that are right in front of us.
Yeah.
The things that we can actually see and touch and feel and grapple with right now.
The stuff that's happening now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got his feet on the ground.
Yeah, and he uses a really interesting analogy to illustrate his point.
Oh, yeah.
He compares current AI to a cat.
A cat.
As opposed to like some, all-knowing, world-ending super intelligence.
Right.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit? What does he mean by that?
Sure. So basically he's saying, while current AI can do some pretty amazing things, right?
Yeah.
It can play chess, it can write poems, it can, create images.
Translate languages.
Yeah, translate languages. Its abilities are still quite narrow.
Okay.
And often brittle. It lacks that broad understanding of the world. The common sense reasoning.
Right.
The truly autonomous decision-making capabilities that would be necessary to pose an existential threat.
So basically he's saying it's like a tool.
Yeah.
It's not like an independent agent.
It's more like a very skilled but ultimately limited tool.
Okay.
Right? It's not an independent agent with its own goals.
Yeah.
And the power to achieve them on, a catastrophic scale.
Right. So it can't like decide I want to take over the world and actually have the the ability to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't have that kind of, overarching intelligence or agency.
Okay.
To bring about those kinds of scenarios.
That's a good analogy.
It is. It kind of brings it down to earth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
From the realm of science fiction to something that we can actually kind of wrap our heads around.
Yeah, and it seems like tech journalist Gregor Schmalzried kind of echoes this view.
Mm-hmm.
He calls the worry about a super AI an actual theoretisch Sorge, which I guess means like a very current theoretical concern.
Right. A very current theoretical concern.
Yeah.
Emphasizing that we are miles away from that kind of AI becoming a reality.
Yeah. So again, like not dismissing it completely,
right,
but saying like, guys, this is not what we need to be focused on right now.
We've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So both Kirsting and this journalist, they're saying, we shouldn't dismiss the long-term possibilities completely, but we should be focused on the challenges we can see and are already starting to encounter.
Exactly.
And what is one of the most significant of those immediate challenges that both of them highlight?
Well, one that comes up again and again in your sources is misinformation.
Okay. Yeah.
The ability of AI to generate, realistic but entirely fabricated content on a massive scale.
The deep fakes.
Yeah, the deep fakes, the fake news articles,
the audio,
the videos. It's all very, very convincing, and it's very, very easy to create now with these tools.
And that feels much more like a here and now problem.
It's something that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And it's having real world consequences.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse, right, as the technology gets better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are they saying about that?
Well, they're both very concerned about it.
Yeah.
They point out that this capacity to create convincing fake news, deep fakes, misleading audio, it's a significant threat to the integrity of our information ecosystems.
Right.
It could undermine trust in media, in institutions, in each other.
Yeah.
And it could have, serious societal and political ramifications.
Yeah, it could like sway elections.
Absolutely. It could sway elections. It could incite violence.
Yeah.
It could, disrupt all sorts of things.
Yeah. So that's a really serious concern.
It is. It's a very serious concern.
But Kirsting does offer a little bit of good news on this front.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always up for good news.
Yeah, me too. Amidst all this doom and gloom.
Yeah. So what is it?
Well, he suggests that while AI can certainly generate a huge amount of text and other media, maintaining a consistent and believable dialogue, the kind of back and forth needed to truly spread disinformation effectively, is actually quite challenging for current AI systems.
Oh, okay.
So he argues that humans still have a significant edge when it comes to nuanced, sustained communication. Building trust over time.
Yeah.
So while AI can create the initial wave of fake content, the human element is often still needed to make it truly persuasive and long-lasting.
So it's like they can create the noise,
Yeah.
but they can't really like craft a convincing narrative over time.
Exactly. They can flood the zone with junk,
Yeah.
but they can't necessarily create, a believable story that will actually convince people to do something.
Okay, that's a bit reassuring.
It is a bit reassuring.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit here.
Sure.
Talk about this call for a pause in AI research.
Oh, yeah.
That came from some internet experts.
Mm-hmm.
One of our sources mentions that. So what was the motivation behind that proposal? Like, why were they calling for a pause?
So this open letter, as it's described in the source, arose from a significant concern
Mm-hmm.
about a potential looming loss of human control over AI
Okay.
as its capabilities and deployment accelerate at such a rapid pace.
Yeah, it's moving really fast.
It is incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And so the experts weren't saying we need to stop all AI research,
Right.
but they were specifically calling for a temporary 6-month pause
Okay.
on the development of the most powerful, potentially transformative AI systems, the kind that, major tech companies are racing to build right now.
Right. So basically like hitting the pause button on the arms race
Exactly.
to develop ever more advanced AI.
Yeah, let's take a breather.
Yeah.
Let's think about this for a second.
And what were they hoping to achieve with that pause?
So the primary goal was to create a window of opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for collective reflection and the establishment of regulations and safety guidelines for future AI development.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was to give policymakers, researchers, industry leaders
Yeah.
time to come together and figure out how to govern this increasingly powerful technology before it potentially outstrips our ability to understand and control its implications.
So basically, like, let's put some safeguards in place.
Yeah. Let's get ahead of this before it gets ahead of us.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty sensible idea.
It does. It's a chance to take a breath
Yeah.
and proactively, put some guardrails in place.
Yeah. But, our sources also present the counter argument, right?
Right.
Emphasizing the potential downsides of demonizing AI and highlighting the very real potential benefits.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the key areas where AI is seen as a major opportunity?
Well, one of the sources really emphasizes that AI holds tremendous promise for driving progress across a wide range of fields.
Mm-hmm.
They specifically point to cancer research as just one example where AI is already playing a crucial role in accelerating discoveries.
Wow.
And beyond that, AI has the potential to automate many repetitive and physically demanding human tasks.
Right.
It significantly improve the efficiency of countless processes across industries.
Yeah.
And ultimately lead to, substantial increases in overall productivity.
So making things better.
Making things better, faster, cheaper.
Faster, cheaper. Yeah. Yeah, and these aren't just theoretical possibilities, right?
No, not at all. We're already seeing tangible benefits in certain sectors.
Okay, give me some examples.
Sure. Faster and more accurate diagnosis of diseases is one.
Okay.
More efficient analysis of large and complex data sets, in fields like climate science.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Kirsting highlights AI's potential to be a game changer in medicine, particularly in areas like robotic surgery and continuous patient monitoring.
So like AI-assisted surgery.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So potentially leading to better outcomes and saving lives.
Okay, so this isn't just about, potential risks. There's very real potential benefits here.
Absolutely.
And one of our sources also touches on the crucial role that humans still play in shaping the future of AI.
Yes, they really underscore the fact that even as AI becomes more sophisticated, human decisions will remain central to how it's deployed and used.
Okay.
So we're still the ones in the driver's seat, ultimately. And they also highlight the importance of establishing clear legal and ethical frameworks created and enforced by humans to ensure that AI is developed and applied in a responsible and ethical manner.
So this connects back to that call for a pause, right?
Absolutely does.
Like let's take a minute to figure out the ethics, the legal frameworks, all of that.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have this tension, right, between the perceived risks and the potential rewards.
Yeah, the two sides of the coin.
Yeah. One of our sources even presents some interesting data on how different groups in society view AI. What did those surveys reveal?
Well, one of them indicates that businesses in Germany, both small and medium-sized enterprises and large corporations, largely view AI as an opportunity.
Okay.
Particularly for the overall economy.
Mm-hmm.
The figures cited show that around 60% of SMEs and 70% of large companies hold this optimistic perspective.
So they're thinking big picture.
Big picture.
The economy is going to grow.
Yeah.
We're all going to be better off.
Exactly.
But there's also like a more nuanced view, right,
Yeah.
within specific sectors.
Yeah. So while the broad economic outlook is generally positive,
Mm-hmm.
the data also suggests that when you delve into specific companies in particular industries,
Yeah.
there tends to be a greater perception of AI as a potential risk.
Okay.
And this likely reflects concerns about job displacement.
Right.
Within those specific sectors, the need for significant upskilling of the workforce,
Yeah.
the potential for established business models to be disrupted by AI-powered innovations.
So it's like, yeah, the overall pie might get bigger,
Right.
but my slice might get smaller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about just the general public? Like
Mm-hmm.
everyday people, how are they feeling about this?
Well, there's a YouGov survey from a few years back mentioned in one of your sources,
Yeah.
and it paints a picture of a more divided public opinion.
Okay.
Only a relatively small percentage, around 15%, expressed a strong belief that AI's benefits would outweigh its risks.
Okay, so not a lot of like rah-rah AI is going to save us.
No, not really.
Yeah.
A larger proportion, about 26%,
Okay.
held the opposite view, believing that the risks were greater.
Okay. So more people are worried than
Yeah, slightly more.
excited.
Yeah. And interestingly, these opinions seem to be fairly consistent across different age groups.
Oh, okay.
So it suggests a kind of widespread uncertainty
Yeah.
and perhaps a cautious skepticism towards the rapid advancement of AI.
So people are just kind of like, I don't know about
And
this.
it's moving too fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so it's not just the experts, right? The general public is also.
Yeah, everybody's grappling with this.
Yeah. Now, one of the most fascinating things about the sources you sent in is that one of them includes AI's own perspective
Oh, yeah.
on whether it's a threat or an opportunity.
Right.
It cites ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So what did the AI have to say about its own potential impact?
Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, ChatGPT offered a balanced perspective,
Okay.
stating that AI presents both significant opportunities and potential threats.
So playing both sides.
Yeah, hedging its bets a little bit.
Yeah.
And that its ultimate impact will largely depend on how humans choose to develop and deploy it.
So we're still in control.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it did highlight its capacity to solve complex problems, automate tedious tasks,
Mm-hmm.
drive innovation across various fields as key benefits.
Yeah.
So, the potential upside is huge,
Right, right.
but it did also acknowledge the downsides.
Okay, what did it say about those?
Well, it pointed to the well-documented risks of job displacement due to automation and the potential for privacy violations through increased AI-powered surveillance.
So the stuff we've already been talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also touched upon some of the more speculative and long-term concerns,
Okay, like
the really big ones.
the science fiction-y ones.
Yeah. So it mentioned the concern that's often voiced by some in the AI research community,
Mm-hmm.
that as AI systems become increasingly intelligent and autonomous, there's a theoretical risk that they could eventually gain control
Oh, yeah.
and potentially view humans as, an inferior or even obsolete species.
Wow.
And this alludes to the concept of the technological singularity,
Yeah.
a hypothetical point in the future where AI self-improvement capabilities lead to an exponential and uncontrollable surge in intelligence,
Oh, boy.
which some believe is a possible, though not necessarily inevitable, outcome of continued rapid AI development.
So basically, the machines become so smart
Yeah.
that they just like leave us in the dust.
Exactly. They surpass us,
Yeah.
and we're no longer needed.
And who knows what happens after that?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Yeah. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff that really captures the imagination, even if it does feel pretty far off.
Mm-hmm.
So let's, as we start to wrap up here,
Okay.
what's the overarching conclusion that one of our sources, in this case, the University of Innsbruck blog,
Yeah.
draws about the need to balance these potential risks and rewards?
Well, their central conclusion really mirrors the complexity of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
They argue that while AI undoubtedly offers significant opportunities, particularly as recognized by the business community,
Right.
it also poses considerable threats
Yeah.
that cannot be ignored.
So we can't just bury our heads in the sand.
No, we can't just pretend that the risks aren't there.
Right.
So they emphasize the critical importance of prioritizing the minimization of these risks
Okay.
through careful and responsible development and implementation of AI technologies,
Right.
coupled with a strong commitment to ethical standards
Mm.
to prevent potential harm to society.
So proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution, but don't stop proceeding.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So kind of a cautiously optimistic outlook.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
But with a very clear call for responsible innovation.
Absolutely.
And thoughtful oversight.
We need to be thinking about this very carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've done a pretty good job unpacking all this stuff.
I think so.
It's a lot.
It is.
The sources you sent in, it's clear that there's a really wide range of perspectives on AI.
Absolutely.
From genuine fears about its potential to cause human extinction to, a much more hopeful view, emphasizing its capacity for incredible progress.
Yeah, and a lot of debate about the timeline.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of these more extreme scenarios playing out.
And it seems like even among the experts, there's not really a consensus.
No, there isn't.
On a lot of this stuff.
And that's part of what makes this so fascinating and so challenging, right? We're dealing with a technology that is evolving incredibly rapidly.
Yeah.
And we're trying to grapple with its implications, in real time.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of debate.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that does come through very clearly from the sources you provided is that regardless of where individual experts fall on this spectrum, there seems to be a growing consensus on the fundamental need for thoughtful development and robust regulation to ensure that we can harness AI's considerable benefits in areas like healthcare and automation while effectively minimizing the potential for harm.
So finding that balance.
Finding that balance, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Well, this has been a truly thought-provoking deep dive, I'll say that.
It has been fascinating.
Into this, this crazy world of AI.
This rapidly evolving world.
Yeah, it's moving so fast.
It is. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, and it leaves us with a final question for you, our listener. Considering these diverse viewpoints and the incredibly rapid pace at which AI technology is advancing, what specific safeguards or ethical considerations do you believe are the most critical to prioritize in the immediate future?
Yeah, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, it's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us on the deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.